What's going on, everybody? This is Andre here, filling in for Kevin, and in this video, I'm going to be giving you 5 reasons why you should buy the Samsung Galaxy M34 5G. So without further ado, let's get started. So coming in at number 1, my first reason why you should buy the Samsung Galaxy M34 5G is the display. Now with this phone, we're getting a 6.5-inch 120Hz Super AMOLED display with a 1080p resolution, a PPI of 396, and a 19.5:9 aspect ratio. So in general, definitely a great display here. At 6.5 inches, the display is definitely on the larger side. So if you're doing stuff like reading, for example, things are going to show up a bit larger and be easier to see. But despite being large enough to give you a really good experience, the phone still isn't too large. So even if you put a case on it, which I personally recommend doing, it's still not going to be too bulky in your pocket. Aside from the size, the image quality is really impressive too. With the Super AMOLED, the display is really bright, the colors are nice and vibrant, and the viewing angles are really good too. So if you're maybe outside in the sun, for example, or really in any kind of bright area, compared to something like an IPS LCD, for example, a Super AMOLED is going to be a lot easier to see. So if you are someone who tends to be outside a lot, definitely keep this in mind because a display like this will be a great option. And then of course, with a 1080p resolution, the image is nice and crisp and clear. So if you're doing stuff like watching videos, for example, where the image quality is a bit more important, things are going to look really nice on a display like this. And then finally, with a 120Hz refresh rate, the movement on the screen is going to be a bit faster and smoother, making the phone feel a bit more premium to use. So in general, if you're looking for a phone that has a really nice display, whether you're consuming content a lot, or you're just doing normal basic activities like browsing the web and using social media, regardless, if the display is important to you, this phone will be a great choice. My second reason why you should buy the Samsung Galaxy M34 5G is the storage. Now with this phone, we're getting 128GB of internal storage with microSD card expansion, so definitely a good amount of storage. For the average user, you're probably not going to have to worry about running out of space, and even if you have lots of maybe photos and videos, for example, again, this phone does support microSD card expansion, so you can always use that to offload stuff like photos and videos, for example, and this will free up a lot more space. So in general, if storage is important to you, and you are looking for a more affordable phone with a bit more space, then again, with an entire 128GB of internal storage, this phone will be a great choice. Now my third reason why you should buy the Samsung Galaxy M34 5G is the camera. To give you a quick rundown of the camera setup here, up front, we got a water drop notch design for the selfie camera. Not really the best looking compared to a hole punch, but I feel like for a water drop notch, it does look at least decent. This camera is 13 megapixels. Then on the back, we got a triple camera setup with a 50 megapixel main camera, an 8 megapixel ultra wide camera, and a 2 megapixel macro camera. And then for video, this phone can record 4K videos in the rear camera and then 1080p in the front. So in general, when it comes to features and everything, the camera setup here is really good. Not only are we getting an ultra wide camera and a macro camera, but with a 50 megapixel main camera, you can expect to get really good photo quality too. In fact, if we go to the main camera, go to the highest megapixel mode, so keep in mind, with this phone, and I want to say most phones that have really high megapixel cameras, the regular photos you take are not going to be in the entire 50 megapixels. So if you do want that maximum resolution, what you're going to want to do is hit this 3x4 right here where the aspect ratio is. Go to 3x4 at 50 megapixels. And now if we take a picture, it's going to be in really good detail. So as you can see, things do look really good here. Definitely a great quality photo, and this really goes to show, if you're taking photos for like maybe Instagram, for example, or something like that, you definitely don't need to go spend $1,000 or $1,400 on the highest end flagship phone out there. You can simply get something a lot more affordable like this. And for most situations, it will get the job done just fine. And again, as you can see here with the little 0.5 right here, it does have an ultra wide camera, so you can get those wider angles and fit a lot more in the frame. And then from here, you can also go back to the main camera, go to the More tab, and the macro camera is right here, along with a bunch of other camera features. So yeah, in general, definitely a great camera setup with some great features. So if you are someone who likes to take a lot of pictures, but you still might not necessarily need the top of the line flagship phone, in that case, I do think this phone will be a great choice. And also, in case you're wondering, Samsung did do something a little bit different this year when it comes to their camera setups. Normally on a mid-range phone like this, you might be expecting a depth sensing camera for portrait mode. But keep in mind, although this phone doesn't have a dedicated depth sensing camera, it really doesn't need one because essentially what they did is just built it into the main camera. So just keep in mind, portrait mode still works perfectly fine on this phone. And in addition to this, when it comes to video, with the M34 5G, despite having a max recording quality of 1080p in the front-facing camera, it can actually record 4K videos in the rear. So if you are recording a lot of videos and you want to get that higher resolution, then this phone will be a great choice for you. So in general, again, I am really impressed with the camera here. Sure, like I said before, it's definitely not comparable to a much more expensive phone, but at the same time, if you are looking for something a bit more affordable, but you still want a good amount of camera features, and overall you just want to take some really nice photos, for those of you who are a bit more camera focused, this phone is definitely a great choice. Now my fourth reason why you should buy the Samsung Galaxy M34 5G is the software. Now with this phone, we are getting Android 13, so definitely great to see there. But in addition to this, also keep in mind, in case you don't know, Samsung really has some of the best software support you can get. So in addition to having the latest version of Android now, you can also expect to get several other major updates in the future. And that is really good because at this point in 2023, we're really only a few months away from Android 14. And with some other manufacturers, the software support tends to not be nearly as good. So getting a brand new phone with Android 13 and then having Android 14 come out and then not even being able to get the update for a few months, if at all, that is definitely disappointing. But with pretty much any new Samsung phone, that's definitely not something you're gonna have to worry about. So if you do maybe like to keep your phone for multiple years, but you still want the latest software, a Samsung phone like this is definitely a great choice. And when it comes to the actual software itself, on one hand, Samsung does of course have their own kind of Android skin here, but I do think the features are really nice, and for the most part, it is really user-friendly. So for the vast majority of users, even if you're coming from maybe more of a stock Android kind of feel, I do think you will end up being happy with the software here. And then finally, my fifth reason why you should buy the Samsung Galaxy M34 5G is the battery. Now with this phone, we're getting a really large 6000 mAh battery that supports 25 watt fast charging. So definitely a great battery here. When it comes to the actual battery size, a 6000 mAh battery is a really large battery. So if you are someone who has to use your phone a lot throughout the day, but maybe you're not always around a charger, for that kind of use, a phone with a battery like this is definitely going to be a great choice. And then down the road, as the battery degrades, which of course, every battery will eventually, with a 6000 mAh battery compared to say a 3 or 4000 mAh battery, it's not going to wear out nearly as quickly. So if you like to get one phone and keep it for a longer time without having to replace it, then again, this phone will be a great choice for that. And when it comes to the charging speed, on one hand, 25 watt fast charging is definitely good, especially for a phone like this. But at the same time, I do want to point out, since the battery is so large, it might not feel quite as fast as if you were charging at 25 watts on a, say, 4 or 5000 mAh battery. So if you are in that situation and you have a slightly higher expectation, then again, keep in mind, if the charging does feel slow, it could just be because the battery is a bit larger than you might be used to. In addition to this, keep in mind, to actually fully utilize 25 watt fast charging, you will need a 25 watt charger, which this phone does not come with. In fact, it doesn't even have a wall adapter at all. Although, to be fair, it does have this cable. So yeah, in general, if you don't have one already, you definitely will want to get a 25 watt fast charger for this phone. But aside from that, in pretty much every way, the battery we're getting here is great. But one other thing I feel like I should add, in case you're expecting the feature, unfortunately, the Samsung Galaxy M34 5G does not have wireless charging. And while in general, this is really not surprising, because at this point in 2023, aside from maybe a small handful of more unique phones, really the only devices that actually have wireless charging are more high-end flagship phones. But in case you maybe haven't gotten a new phone for a while, and you're expecting that feature, again, keep in mind, despite having a great battery with pretty good fast charging, the Galaxy M34 5G does not have wireless charging. But those were my 5 reasons why you should buy the Samsung Galaxy M34 5G. In general, despite having maybe a few minor drawbacks, as pretty much every phone does, I do think if you're looking for an affordable 5G phone that has a really nice display, a great camera, plenty of storage, good software and software support, and a really large battery, then the Samsung Galaxy M34 5G is definitely worth considering. Now for information about pricing and availability, definitely check out the link in the video description, because this does change from time to time. But again, this was Andre here filling in for Kevin. These were 5 reasons to buy the Samsung Galaxy M34 5G, and I will see you in the next video.